This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your captain, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozzie, welcome back to Full Stream Ahead tonight. Oh, you know what? All last episode, you know what we did not say?
What? Oh, no, we forgot to take a drink.
Episode.
Ah,
so please
geez.
take drinks now that we are at the ultimate episode.
Mm.
The one following the penultimate episode. Take a drink. Tonight's episode, Season 2, Episode 8. What I Know. Becca shows up on Butcher's doorstep and begs for his help. The boys agree to back Butcher, and together with Starlight, they finally face off against Homelander and Stormfront. But things go very bad, very fast. Alex Graves is our director. Rebecca Sonnenschein gets our written by credit, and Eric Kripke gets our developed by credit. And of course, Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, they created the dang comic book this is all based off of. So, yes, Tristan's making himself a virgin mimosa. Well, what you're making is Sunny D and Budweiser Zero, so that's... But an actual mimosa would be orange juice and champagne. Yes, like a screwdriver, but instead of vodka, it's champagne. But in your case, it's Sunny D and Budweiser Zero. Zero alcohol with kids. Well, because you were a very well-educated child, so you've learned about all the things that adults know. Okay, getting back to the story. Sorry. That was a non sequitur. What I know. So this episode, this takes place after the head blowing up, and of course, it is such a strange thing, and we basically have this neat little conversation between Homelander and Stormfront, and they're like, "Did you do that?" It's like, "No, did you do that?" Who did that? And they're like, and Homelander had to be Edgar. Edgar must be blowing people's heads up. And he says, "Really, Edgar?" He says, which is interesting but I guess they probably just assume it's an interesting idea that maybe they just assume Edgar has they don't know he does. We figure, you know what?
Right.
He's so calm around us. Maybe we don't want to mess with him.
Yeah. It's amazing. His superpower is his image.
Yeah, he is so Giancarlo. He Giancarlo's at them, and
yeah.
He stares at them, Giancarlo-ly. Giancarlo Esposito, that's his name. Yes. He's got such a gorgeous name, and it's like, but it's so many syllables of Giancarlo Esposito. It says,
it's a poem in itself.
Esposito, you. But yeah, and then we get because throughout this, Stormfront does show her butt a lot, not in a good way. Where she just lets it out there, and it's like where it says, well, he is very smart for one of his kind, right. And it's like, sweetheart, this is the guy running your Nazi husband's company. Maybe show some respect. Is I guess the moral of that story.
Just a touch.
Just a touch. But yeah. So, but it also shows that it's neither of them, which is like, oh, okay. They were very calm during it all, but at the same time, I think that these guys are always calm, because they are relatively invulnerable. So, they're not going to panic that heads are exploding because, they see heads explode all the time. It's like, okay, yeah, heads be exploding. That happens. But
I wonder if any of their thought was, ooh, I wonder if this is me, if there's some new power that I'm all of a sudden developing.
Or thinking it's the person next to them. Maybe that's
right.
what, maybe basically Homelander didn't panic and says, oh, this is a Stormfront power,
Yeah.
He's got these crazy head pop powers now,
Yeah.
We get to that at the end. That's the mystery that's revealed at the end. But anyway. No, we're on that episode, the final episode. Don't spoil it. We're not to that point yet. Yes, we're podcasting the last episode of The Boys right now. Okay. Can you hear what he's saying, just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
told him if he wants to be heard, he has to speak up, so he's shouting now.
I could hear him.
Yes, I love you too, Tristan. Anyway, so, after the head-popping incident, we basically have, Homelander and Stormfront come to pick up Ryan, who's just been playing games with Ashley, and they're like, sorry we left you all alone. And they're like, he wasn't alone, I was here. And it's just, poor Ashley, they're so dismissive.
I know.
And it's like, you feel for her. That's what I will always say about Ashley, is you feel for her, because it's like, she's not a bad person. She's not, she's actually doing everything everyone wants and really working hard to make sure they're safe and everything works out, both for the company, for the heroes. She really does her part, and yet, her hair's falling out. She's pretty nuts. I think that it was actually even a thing Stormfront said is like, yeah, they don't say that they don't think that Ashley has any brain damage, but with her, how can you tell? Because Ashley was at the event too. We also have in this storyline, Becca comes to Butcher, and it's basically, you got to help me get my son back. You got to help me protect him. And he agrees to do that, and in order to do that, he reaches out to Edgar. And this is where Edgar gets the best speech. Where basically, where it's like, oh, well, you know who Stormfront is, he's like, yes, I know, and what will I do? Run around like a maniac? That is a luxury of the white man. And it's just like, most powerful man in the world, arguably, but also, well, at least, in the corporate sense, but also just like, my power is delicate. My power, I get to maintain it because I'm careful with it. Because I don't let it get tossed
in the way of the goals.
Exactly.
His goal is broader. He's seeing the forest for the trees, and he's not going to let one felled tree, let him stop him from his end goal. I would love to know what that is.
Well, but that's where I get into this idea of, interesting that, it's A-Train's replacement. Man, I wish I could remember I can't remember his name now. Man, shows you what an impression that guy made. Poor guy. That it's A-Train's replacement because it's A-Train's replacement. That is why when his head blows up, they need a speedster, and that is what triggers A-Train to betray the church, the collective. Because they make the point that, when A-Train is told, they're going to take the deep back, they're not going to take you. A-Train goes and steals the files. And what's also interesting in this is that A-Train is actually still pretty fast here. He is by no means, that and arguably maybe he's healed. Maybe his heart isn't as bad as it was, and it would be it's interesting to see this when they make the point to him to say, oh, hey, because of course, Huey and Starlight are driving, and he just sort of like opens the door and gets in the backseat and says, I forget what he says, but it's
my favorite thing is like, how did you find us? Oh, I just ran around the city until I found you.
I can cover the 5 boroughs in like 4
right.
in like a minute.
Yes.
Which and they get, isn't your heart going to explode? It's like, my heart's not going to explode. It's like, I know what I'm doing. What I'm doing right now isn't actually an exertion. What actually is an exertion is other stuff, especially when, I'm hopped up on the V, which I'm not anymore. It's like that there's a whole complexity to the conversation here. And as it stands, interestingly enough, he gives them the files on Stormfront, and basically, he says, look, I don't care what you say. You just didn't get them from me. Hops out of the car and runs off. And then you get what, I'm trying to think when this happens. Because it's after Stormfront. That's right. That's after Stormfront leaves, because there's this whole process. They scan everything, they upload it, because they go because they know where Homelander is. They know where his cabin is, because that's what Edgar gives Butcher.
Right.
Edgar gives Butcher the
location of Ryan.
Well, yeah. Well, what he says, because the idea is like, look, your only defense against Homelander is Ryan, which is interesting because that, of course, is that thing that is that variation on the original Boys plotline. Because in the original Boys plotline, there is no, in the books, there is no Ryan, and that actually most of the horrible things that were being done were done by Black Noir, because Black Noir was actually a Homelander clone, yada, yada, yada. Whole different story, not the story we're telling here. And in that story also, Black Noir is actually the one who actually does most of the horrible things that people think Homelander did. So all the things that people... Yeah, so that's just an interesting little tidbit about the other universe that exists. And within all of this is this idea that, so they're going to plan this attack, and they set up these Vought sonic. Oh, it's not this one. After we're done, you can change it after we're done. Oh, okay, you can change that channel. That's fine. No, it's okay. I just like to keep it on broadcast while we're recording so that it's not using up data. Yeah, that's fine. So change the channel on broadcast. Sorry, Mozzie, we're getting all this domesticity this episode. It's a very... It's okay. We love you anyway, Tristan. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, so they set this up because they've got this plan. They've got this device that's supposed to take out Stormfront. It's like a EMP grenade launcher. They've got the sound things to deal with Homelander. And essentially, once they upload the information to the cloud, Stormfront has to leave. Well, actually, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because there's so many important points I want to hit before this.
Okay.
One of which is when they go to the restaurant, because that's the first one. So, Homelander takes his son to Planet Vought, which is a little Planet Hollywood kind of place in this world, because obviously, why would you have Planet Hollywood if you could have Planet Vought? And of course, Planet Vought is kind of Planet Hollywood because the superheroes all make movies. So so it's interesting in that, and it's actually also interesting that you notice that if you look in the decor, you still see stuff for the Deep Up. They haven't gotten rid of they haven't purged this area the way that they changed the statues at the tower. For those who remember, that was like one of the Lamp Brothers things. He got mad because his statue had been taken down at the tower. So here you'll probably still some lamplighter merch in there. As it stands, they go to Planet Va, and of course, everyone starts talking, and then of course the kid's super hearing starts kicking up, and it starts overwhelming him and hurting him. And Homelander, and again, when Homelander picks up his son to take him away, he doesn't just like push through people or anything like that. He just says, please step back, stand back, please. He's aware of his image. He's aware of where he is. He's aware of the people around him. He knows he's being watched right now. He really knows he has to be careful, but he also, arguably maybe doesn't want to just randomly kill people, even when they're hurting him, because everybody hurts him all the time, arguably, in his mind. The world is always filled with noise. Everybody's constantly talking. You think about, I know that was the thing in the Ben Affleck Daredevil where he has to sleep in the sensory deprivation chamber, because otherwise he just hears so much. He feels so much and hears so much. He can't operate except under these conditions. So he takes off with Brian, and it's always interesting because it's one of these things that, have you ever seen Jesus Christ Superstar?
Yes.
There is a great scene where they basically have Jesus Christ Superstar, in this one scene, and all these. And basically, once word gets out that he can heal, then everyone starts crawling towards him, and it's almost like a zombie apocalypse kind of scene, And it's based off of the idea of, the woman who touches the hem of Jesus' robe and is healed. It's a beautiful story in that sense, but it is also this idea where it's kind of horrific when you think about it, of all these people who save me, save me, save me from the physical things. It's like, no, I'm here to heal your spiritual woes. It's like, that's not going to help right now. But that idea of everyone crowding around you because of you, they want a piece of the power. They want to feel whatever it is that you have come into them. And it's not like it can be a passive thing. You actively have to give a piece of yourself to satiate that hunger. Exactly. And for what it's worth, arguably that is part of what is Homelander's whole story, in order to, again, I remember when we first started watching this, back in season 1, it was like, how dare you make me feel empathy for the Deep? How dare you make me feel bad for this man? And it's like, there are times where I'm like, dang, you're making me feel sorry for Homelander. Yeah. You're making me see things from his perspective. And, and again, it's like this idea that you find out that, Donald Trump's dad beat him, probably mercilessly, or at least mentally, made him feel horrible. Did you ever see the old Christopher Titus? Yes. Sitcom. Mm-hmm. And there is this, and Stacey Keach played his father, and in that. Christopher Titus's wife is Irish. His dad doesn't like the Irish, yada yada yada. But his wife's family is very physically abusive. And Stacey Keach says, "No, you see, I mentally abused my child. Those scars, those last a lifetime." And that's the truth. Is that people? Although I will say the idea of Donald Trump's dad probably beat him. I wonder how much of that is true. And the other thing is these sort of abnormalities in behavior, or the fact that you turn into someone that's hurting other people, or yada yada yada, that can come from one of many places. It can come from you were hurt as well, or it's that the environment you grew up in was such that you formed that thing through no sort of abuse, but just through gluttony and through those sorts of things can deform you just as well. So some people's cases, it's not necessarily that they were hurt; it's just had a bad upbringing, or a bad environment. But again, it's this idea of that sometimes it's even more than just the physical abuse. It is that mental abuse. It is that that cruelty of people towards you that just takes away from you. Anyway, I mean that's one theory, I suppose. Now I'm trying to remember what the heck we were talking
They
about.
definitely do find some redeemable moments for Homelander.
Yeah, for Homelander, because and that is the thing. And depending on, because we still don't know what happened. We know that he was raised in a. That was the thing I wanted to talk about plush mommy versus wire mommy. I don't know if you know about the rhesus monkey experiments, where they would have this rhesus monkey and they would have one basically dummy mommy. It was this dummy that they could cling to that was free.
Ah, yes.
And one that was made of wire.
The one with the wire fed them, but the one that was soft didn't.
And they would cling to this plush mommy until they were so hungry. And then they would go over and feed, but they would come back once they were done feeding, or if they were forced to choose, they would often choose the plush one instead of eating. Exactly. Well, that was the idea, and that is essentially Homelander's story. And so when we get to that whole idea of Homelander's milk obsession, interestingly enough, that is kind of his thing. He was raised with a wire mommy. He was raised where he never got that compassion. And so, that idea that he needs that compassion. And again, this is this moment where we get to with him when he actually has an actual moment of real kindness towards his son.
Right, because it's exactly the moment he was trying to warn his mom about. If you let him out into the world, everything is going to scare him. And it's like, whoa, I just did the thing that I was, and immediately he even just disregards Stormfront. He just gets up and got to get the kid out of there.
Exactly. And he goes into this whole story where he explains to him, I have been afraid. The first time they let me into the world, it was just like this. I was scared. They found me walking out, on I-95, and it's, that's an interesting little parallel between Cindy from a couple episodes ago, where she's just out walking on the road, when they find her. But, it is just such a powerful moment for Stormlander. And then this is the thing where I really feel you get what the crux of Stormfront's problem is, and that I think where Homelander realizes is that Stormfront isn't who he wants to be with, or even in that moment, she makes a statement that she starts talking to poor Ryan about white genocide. And again, you see this little twitch from Homelander because he doesn't want to tell her no, because not for nothing, this is the person who he's shtipping. Right. But you can tell, don't tell him that. That's not who we are as superheroes,
Well, I think the most we got out of him was one of these, well...
Yeah, and the thing is, and that gets to what she says later, I believe, when she's confronting Starlight and them, where she says, everyone likes what I say, they just don't like the word Nazi. And the thing is, it's like, well, yeah, but that's the thing they don't like. And that's the thing that is actually, it's this idea that people like the idea of we, the people, need to band together against them, the others, until you use the word Nazi, because that tells everyone, oh, wait, Nazis, I'm one of the others to the Nazis, aren't I? I'm not going to be in on your little gang because, I'm a Jew, I'm a Catholic, I'm a gypsy, nobody likes anybody, really. And Nazis don't like anybody. That's the actual truth of Nazis, is that actual Nazi ideology is so obsessed with purity, which is why I make the point. It's like the reason you see these people who are not blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans being the Nazi banner holders is because, it is these people who are so filled with self-loathing that become Nazis. And that quest for purity that people recognize once you say Nazi. that's why it's such a powerful word, because once you say Nazi, people know that you're not just talking about, us, working together to build a stronger America. You're actually saying building we're saying make America white again. And that is when people jump off, because even if you're white, maybe you're not going to pass somebody's purity test.
Right.
That there's going to be a test. And again, like I said, when we look at the last episode, with the guy with the black beard, he even has kind of a swarthy appearance when you look at him, He's probably not going to make the cut.
Right.
He's going to get that reverse paper bag test, where, you're not going to be allowed into the group. And once people say Nazis, that's when they know that, I'm not going to be allowed into the group. I'm not going to be one of the people that gets to cross over in your world because you see me as lesser. And it's an interesting, concept within comic books and superheroes in general, and the idea of, building better people. Because, of course, that's the idea behind Steve Rogers. He is the perfect human ideal. But also, and I think there's this noble idea in that, what if humans could be without frailty? So it becomes less this, racially idolized idea and more like, that physical perfection. What if we could all be 6'2" with big broad chests and, ripped muscles? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great if every human did not feel pain in that way? And that's
we'd find something to feel pain about.
Well, yeah, it's all emotional pain. That's what they say, It's like you have that perfect brain that now feels everything in such precise ways,
Right, but the human mind also has this capacity to get bored really easily.
Yeah, that's true.
If things are too good, if things are too calm, somebody will find something to be upset about.
Why do you think Captain America is always punching people? Fortunately, there's always a full supply of Nazis to punch. So, it's always someone that you can smack around in these situations. But that idea that, needing that constant stimulation and that's for what it's worth. Maybe that's why these people, choose these high adventure lifestyles in the comic books, because, if they sat at home and watched TV, they wouldn't feel as fulfilled, It's not as easy as I make it look, as I always tell people.
Right.
But, so I do think that's an important point in this. And then we get to the scene where Stormfront flies off. Because Stormfront does fly off, because she gets the text message that, guess what? Everybody knows what you did. And there's this great scene that I love in this, is that as soon as she gets back to Vought Tower, and it's all this, there's, everything's out there, and they show a meme, because we see that her power has been the meme power, and now it's being turned against her. Oh no! With, little goose-stepping, Stormfront getting hit by a car, that actually that was one of those old, I forget what group that was that did those in the early days of memes. There was that did the cardboard cutout talking head political figures singing songs, So, that's a throwback, really. I forget what they were called, but yeah, now I'm remembering them. Now I get what they were referencing in that. And so in that way, she is hoisted by her own petard. Meanwhile, essentially the idea is Butcher and Becca are supposed to pick up Ryan and leave and go back to Vaught's place.
Or to go back to the CIA so they can get help, right?
Well, no.
But he has planned with Edgar a counter plan gets Ryan.
His plan with Edgar was that, yes, I can get the kid. The kid's going to come with me and Becca. You can then pick up the kid.
No, his thing was, Edgar said to him, let me keep the boy. I'll keep the boy safe, and you get to keep Becca. And he told Becca that we're going there to get the boy out and that the CIA is going to help us take him. and then at the last minute he changes his mind.
Maybe I'm forgetting the plot line on that. Okay, I mean that's possible. I mean, I was under the that's right. So the idea was once he finds the boy, he calls in Vought's people. Vought's people come, pick up the boy, take him and Becca back. He has made the deal with Mallory. That's right. That he's going to have Mallory take the boy and and the boy. I don't know if he was supposed to take the boy and Becca, so that Becca can still raise him, but it'll be under the CIA's auspices rather than Vought's auspices, because CIA is so much better choice, obviously.
Well, for what it's worth, Mallory seems like a good person and a person that her word is important to her.
Well, yes, but at the same time, it's sort of like, Nick Fury. Everybody likes Nick Fury. Everybody trusts Nick Fury. But Nick Fury is a double-dealing super spy.
Right, but the reason people trust him is because they know that if he has to make that decision, he'll probably have a good reason to. And that you can at least be afforded that luxury in that moment to know that you're not going to get screwed over for, a silly reason.
Yeah, but then again, what the reason is going to be that complex. It always gets more complex. That's what I'm saying. It's like and there's going to come a time. I think
the people that trust Nick Fury are the people that are willing to do their part for the cause.
Well, or the people that survive the choices he made. And,
right, but it's either we survive his choices or nobody survives often, right?
Well, at least that's what he told you.
Fair enough.
That's the thing.
But that's my point. It really comes down to that people trust him, and then that's the reason. And he has built up that trust by the decisions he made before, having usually been for the greater good.
Yes, and that is fair. And in truth, what I'm going to say is that a lot of times people don't trust Nick Fury, especially because he has screwed them over on numerous occasions for the greater good.
They probably deserved it.
Well, not necessarily. When here's what I'll say: when Nick Fury sends Wolverine and Spider-Man in to topple to topple Doctor Doom or there was a coup in Latveria and he sends them in, and then basically Nick Fury has left a lot of people holding the bag. Sharon Carter got left holding the bag. Right. That's a whole story.
I don't know if I would call it being left holding the bag. That's what I mean about doing your part. It's like if he can bring you to that precipice and you get to do your part. That's the deal he's making with you at all times.
It's only you're doing your part if you're told what your part is at the start.
No, but that's my point. You trust the cause and you trust your leaders in a way that you trust them to know that if they ask you to make that sacrifice, that it'll be worthwhile. And that's the reason people give that right over to him, that they know that if he asks them to make that sacrifice, whether he asks with his words or with his actions, if you're for the cause, and that's, I think, the reason people trust him, even though he's a double-crossing son of a you-know-what.
And what I will say is that in many times, the people that trusted him really come to the understanding that they maybe shouldn't have. That whatever Fury's cause was, maybe it was for the greater good, but maybe it was for a greater good that Fury saw, but that in the individual good, it wasn't.
So another way to look at that is the person who's feeling that sort of way is opting to choose for their own happiness versus everyone else's.
Or that they just don't trust that Nick Fury's choice of everyone's happiness was really
everyone's like a likely justification.
Yeah, well, I guess what it comes down to is whether or not you're going to trust the U.S. government. So, just to bring us,
but it's not the U.S. government; it's S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, no, but with Mallory, it is.
Oh.
So when we go full circle back, and that's the idea here, is that when we go full circle back, it is this fact. Oh yeah, these are the guys who paperclipped Vought in the first place to build them superheroes. During the Cold War, and there's all these things, that, there's so much more in the story that when you look at it like that. But, you hope Mallory's going to do right. And for what it's worth, a character like Brian isn't in and of himself a threat yet. And honestly, they probably know that he's got a good enough base that they can build him up in a positive way. Basically give him Robin training, teach him to be, raise him in goodness and wholesomeness and, education and the like. And hopefully, don't have some kind of crazed pedophile in the CIA be a part of this storyline. You hope. Fingers crossed. This is the boys, after all. They did say that the G-Men might come into the next season. So, that's bad. Just so those who don't know, the G-Men are the X-Men parallel in the Vought universe. Universe. And
so somebody that has had this mutation happen naturally, not due to the serum.
Or that's the story that they have. I'm not sure exactly, but they're meant to. But basically, all the characters are meant to seem like members of. Like it's like sometimes they play fast and loose with this. As an example, Love Sausage was actually one of the Soviet super soldiers. If you remember Love Sausage from a few episodes ago. Yes. So he was one of the Soviet group of super soldiers. And I'm sorry, it's burned in my mind forever too, Tristan. I'm sorry. But yeah, so that's the idea. And it's sort of the thing that, much like the real Charles Xavier, gets a little too close to some of his students. So we'll have to see what they do with that. But the idea of, actually we do have naturally born superheroes, and we assume Ryan is the first, but is he? And that's this thing that when you get this idea of, a character like Soldier Boy, who has been around since the 40s and has no doubt, much as I've always pointed out with Steve Rogers, when you have him on his publicity tour in the first Avenger, and there's all these pretty blonde-haired ladies looking at him, winking at him as he's traveling around the country. How many of them said, could you sign something for me, Mr. Captain America? And, poor old Cap just sort of gets swept up in things. So there may well be people like that, people who are the result of some of these sexual dalliances that actual superheroes have had. Now, with regard to Stormfront, we know she had a daughter, but her daughter may have been born before she had the powers, and there may have been reasons why she couldn't get pregnant after that. It's sort of the, there are these interesting ideas where they say, yes, if you had this, superhuman invulnerability, maybe it's going to make it hard for an egg to implant. Maybe it's going to make your sperm shoot out at super speed, all sorts of things like that. So, there's all sorts of problems that you could have with this. But the idea of naturally born superheroes might be something that Vought was aware of and has been working with this whole time, But that might be what Edgar's thing is, because we'll get to that in a minute. Because first off, let's talk about girls getting it done, which is their homage or criticism of, although it's not really even a criticism of, it's just sort of, they sort of do it twice, because they do it once in the Vought Rise of the Seven scene, where they have Stormfront and Maeve and Starlight say, we'll get her to the tower, that whole thing, which is fine. But then in this one, basically what happens is, they and this is what they do. So, okay, so the whole plot line is they make this sound that Frenchie rigs up to cause, supersonic distress for Homelander and Ryan. Homelander, because of course he can take it, goes out to find the source of the sound, blows up the speakers, sees that these are Vought speakers, realizes Vaught's trying to do something to me, which of course is an assumption since Vought makes so many things. Just because it's a Vought brand product doesn't mean it's Vought doing it.
Right, but like anyway, finding Tony Stark brand missiles in your village.
Exactly. It's like Stark makes lots of things, you know, and not every he's not personally responsible for all of their uses. So anyway, but he flies back to the cabin. But of course, once he gets back to the cabin, there's all these Vought special ops because Butcher called the Vought special ops to come to the cabin to get him and the kid. And suddenly, Homelander comes back, sees his son is missing. All these Vought special forces standing around, just starts lasering them. Oh, the difficult life of a henchman. Exactly. Poor henchman. No one ever worries about the henchman. I mean, we assume they've got really good life insurance policies that have the double indemnity for dying in battle, that kind of thing. I'm sure Vought pays a heavy premium for it so their families are taken care of. But, hey, Vought's got to be a union shop, man. You got to be paying good benefits to get people to keep this many secrets. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, people are being taken care of for the rest of their lives when they work for Vought, because that's the only way you keep someone quiet, even if you can kill them. Because it's like, you know, you really got to be willing to write those checks and keep people quiet and to do what you have to do. Although, you know, arguably, you know, they have been cheap when they felt they could be cheap, but still, you know, you think in a lot of cases they assess these things. And if you're inside Vought, you're probably getting all the perks you need, you know. So anyway, where was I? Yes. So Stormfront, because Stormfront stops there before Homelander, after she gets back, and you know first she fights
Kimiko and Starlight.
Yes, and you know is dealing with it, and that's a weird thing for me because it's like, okay, Stormfront has electricity powers. Stormfront, you know, Starlight basically EMPs those electricity powers. How is she not able to just like short circuit her and blow her up? But you know,
right.
I guess it doesn't work.
But at the same time, her power is to strengthen electricity, so all she could ever do is make her stronger, right?
Oh, she could overload her. That's always a thing that happens too. You know, well, she's an electrokinetic, so arguably, but what I'm saying is she should be able to turn the electricity bolts back on her or something like that, you know?
Yeah, but even if you hit her with electricity, it's only going to make her stronger.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, it's sort of, I kind of look at it like that Force lightning stuff that the Emperor does. You know, he shoots the lightning and then you deflect it like Mace Windu, he deflects it back at him, and you know, it's all ghouly faced. But anyway, so but you know, one thing that I like in there is like when Kimiko's fighting her, and then she breaks Kimiko's neck, and then Kimiko's laying down, and then she like knocks out Starlight, and she's gonna hit her, and then Maeve shows up, and then you realize Kimiko gets back up because Kimiko has a healing factor, and then they just start curb stomping her until she has to fly away. Then you have Butcher and Becca and Ryan. They're trying to get away, and Stormfront comes up to them, and Stormfront basically is, you know, she knocks out Butcher, she's strangling Becca, and then Ryan lets go. Because as Homelander told him, it helps if you focus on someone you hate. And he's like, I don't hate anyone. You know who I hate? The person trying to kill my mom. Yeah. And, oh my God, that is just this powerful thing. Because basically, when we come back, we see she's, you know, there's this completely charred up Stormfront. Faces
missing both her arms and her legs. She's just basically a singed stub.
Yeah, you know, and she's just mumbling in German. Let's go, you know, and I don't know if she's dying. I don't know what's happening. And we see Becca basically has this cut on her throat, and you know, and Ryan's like, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry." Which is also this thing where it's like, you know, you didn't do anything, kid. You know, it really wasn't your fault. That you had to get this woman off of her, and she died. But it was probably the laser eyes that, even though, dang, did that much damage to Stormfront, and it's just like that little cut on her neck, but it's just in just the right spot.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, oh fudge, man. And then you just have, you know, Butcher's like, trying to hold it, says, somebody help us. And of course, then Homelander comes in. You can see how disgusted he is at the weakness of Stormfront in this moment. And he's like, she was speaking German. And then I just love this idea of Butcher picking up the crowbar to stand up against Homelander. And Homelander's just like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm doing what I have to do. I'm doing what I said I'd do, And for what it's worth, it's like, it is such a noble stupidity, if you will. Because, I get what you're saying. This is what you promised to do, and you promised to do this for him. But, what are you going to do? But then, of course, fortunately, Maeve shows up.
Yeah, but there's something to that, to the last breath. And it's like, what is your life worth if it isn't worth something in that moment?
Yeah, and I agree with it. And honestly, I do the same thing too, because, so there's this great scene in DS9 where Quark has to do a Klingon battle. And, because essentially...
Those are to the death.
Yeah, and essentially the plot line in this is that, okay, this one Klingon was using accounting to devalue the property of this other Klingon. And he has to basically go there and explain accounting to Klingons, explain how this Klingon was using this unworthy tactic to devalue this other house that he continually made these investments, and of course all the Klingons like, stop talking, and then he challenges him to a battle, and then he says, okay, fine, I'll battle you for your honor. He throws down his bat'leth, and he says, I'm not going to beat you. Go ahead, be the big man. You can tell all your children about the day when you valiantly struck down a Ferengi, and basically, and of course then the guy's going to strike him down, but then, the actual head of the Klingon Council stops him, and it's like, you are ashamed that you would strike down such a pathetic creature without honor. You are without honor, and basically, yay! It was a really great episode, especially because, like I said, I love the fact that it's all about how, Klingons don't understand money, but if a Klingon did understand money, he could basically scam all the Klingons all day long, because Klingons are stupid.
They're just asking for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway,
but if you mess with them, you kind of are too.
Yeah. So, but when it comes to this idea in this moment, where if he stands up to Homelander might not kill him. He's gonna fight, but and if nothing else, maybe he says, what? Look, let's work out some kind of a deal here. I don't want to have to kill you, especially not in front of my son. Especially not after he watched his mom die. And because he's probably got some kind of crazy bonding to you in this moment. So maybe we'll work it out. But then, of course, what happens is Maeve shows up and basically blackmails him. Because that is his real weakness. His one weakness. I'm an awful person, and someone might find out. Basically, says, I've got the tape of us leaving, and he basically says, yeah, of course you'll be charged with that too. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter, just so long as no one ever loves you again. And it's like, oh, that's just the thing that she knows what would kill him. And then we get all of our little end cap scenes. We get basically, Homelander saying, and thanks to the brilliant work of Starlight and Maeve, and Starlight who went undercover, we apologize for doubting her, but she went undercover and proved the truth of how the lone actor Stormfront was responsible for all of the problems.
Yeah, and don't mind that Homelander on the grassy knoll.
Yes, exactly. And just, it comes, and it just, but it's beautiful in the way that he's like, he says, and just, I know I have no truer friends than you, just to show that he can lie with the best of them. We get Mother's Milk going back to his family. I think we get a nice little Kimiko and Frenchie scene, because they're all happy now. And we get a nice scene where Butcher gives Ryan the St. Christopher medal from his mother, and Ryan says, "What do I tell you?" And he says, "Don't be a cunt." He says, "Good man." And he gets into the limo with Mallory, and then we have this very cute scene where basically Starlight and Huey are talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I've always just stuck in there no matter what, and da-da-da-da-da-da. I think I need to not just keep on sticking in there and just start making my own way." And Starlight thinks she's breaking up with him. He's like, "Oh, no, not that. No. I'm not stupid.
I'm still going to cling to you. I'm not an idiot."
Yeah, exactly, which is, it's beautiful.
It's adorable.
It's adorable. And then we get this scene where basically the head of the church is talking to Victoria Newman about the deals that they've all struck, and yes, I see that.
Now he confirms that the information against Stormfront came from him.
Yes,
and I've got a treasure trove of secrets at your disposal. Oh yes.
Yes, but he wants to attack some tennis, and then they hang up, and he is sort of sitting back in his chair. He's drinking his Fresca, and then his head explodes. Which is delightful, because obviously that was
soon to be Congresswoman Newman.
Yeah, it's Congresswoman Newman. We see her outside. Her eyes were all cloudy, and now they're normal. Which makes me wonder if they're going to do a flashback where someone's watching the tape. They're going to actually see, kind of like what we saw with the convenience store clerk's eyes, where they had that slight glow. Where it's going to be people like starting to.
Oh, did they just turn us into one of them?
I don't know. Maybe.
Like, am I that guy in the grocery store going, "Hey, I saw a glint in your eye"?
Exactly. So, I'm saying that in the story, people will be like that. Will people be like go back over the footage and like someone's gonna freeze them? Why does her eyes glow at this moment?
Right. But is that the same thing that we're doing? Is that a metaphor to put us in those shoes?
Oh, maybe. And of course, we get at the end is Huey wants to volunteer for her campaign because he wants to do what's right. Oh, also, obviously, the boys are going to start doing this work on the books. They're going to be doing the wet works for the superheroes on the books, where they're going to.
Yeah, and those and that payroll is being funded by Vought itself.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, if she is actually, which it sounds like, she's probably an agent of a deep undercover agent for Giancarlo Esposito's character. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Mr. Edgar.
Stan Edgar. So if she's working for Stan Edgar, and she's the one who gave Mallory the funding to set up this little task force, then their funding is coming from Vought. So at all times, they will have a tab on these guys, supposedly meant to be hunted, and they can be sort of diverted at every turn.
And this is my thing. I think that Giancarlo's that Mr. Edgar, I said it earlier, I don't know why I can't say it now, that Mr. Edgar basically is playing this 8-dimensional chess.
Yeah.
I think that Newman is his loyal plant to basically keep the soups under control. And it's not to say that this was his plan all along, but he is a guy who can improvise when he needs to. And once the Compound V started going out there, that basically he was planning. He knew stuff like this was going to happen. Essentially, and this is actually an interesting aspect when you think about something like Compound V. You can have this idea, oh, this one scientist created it, so it could never be created again. It's like, no, that's not how science works. Somebody is going to stumble upon the same dang thing again sometime again at some other time. And because people know that this stuff is possible, it makes it all the more likely that someone's going to be able to recreate it or reverse engineer it, from something. And in fact, I think that's one of the ideas that existed in the other books, was that, even if people didn't have Vought's secret sauce, there were enough people willing who were able to figure out what he did to try and recreate stuff like that.
Or figure out another way to solve the same problem.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or, sort of like when you, if you ever saw Ant-Man, and you'll notice that the Hydra Pym particles were a different color than the proper true Pym particles, because they had found a way to do it, but they did it through a different route.
Right. It's like the blue meth in Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Another Giancarlo
Esposito.
Esposito. I wanted to put an extra C in there for some reason. Giancarlo Esposito. Another great work of his. And the idea being that, there's always going to be someone who's going to figure out another way. There's always going to be someone who's going to break it down a different way. And so that is, in essence, what the worry is. And if you have to have that worry, you have to be ready to build your contingency plans and contingency plans for your contingency plans. And you can't get flustered just because your plan doesn't work. You've got to say, okay, what do we do now? What is the next option? What is our threat assessment? What is our liability? And for what it's worth, Mr. Edgar has threaded the needle. And I think that it is entirely possible that this was all his intention. I think that the reason that A-Train's replacement gets his head blown up is so A-Train, who is now in the church, will sneak into their file room, get the evidence that they need, give it to the people who need to get it out there. So that, and then you could even go back a few steps more, where all of a sudden what Homelander did was bad, but then what Starlight did helped Edgar in the long run, because now it's out, like when it's just rumored and it's secret and we're all bent over a barrel, that stuff. But if we just go out there, now it's our narrative to control. And now it becomes, do we need more V? Do we need to sell people more V? Now that we're going to say V's out there, do we have to say, well, how do we provide more V to the people? And that gets in that, and in that way, that's what Stormfront brings to the table. She's going to give people wanting the V, because again, so long as she's out by the time she's a Nazi, it's just a bunch of people who says, we need more V, and we need our soldiers to have the V, and da-da-da-da-da, and all this kind of stuff. Although they've also clamped down on the V, because truth be told, Vought doesn't want a bunch of superheroes running around. They want to have tight control on a very special product that they only own. And for what it's worth, because there's no patent on Compound V, because obviously you don't patent it, you get to own it forever. Now, if someone else reverses engineers it, then you're out of luck. But so long as you have it, you don't have a patent expiration that would occur that would allow other people to make Compound V. So it's a very, very complex situation, and I think that Edgar is in charge of it. And I think we maybe get that in the next season when we get to the G-Men, when we get to what is being built out there, because I can see this idea of these children of superheroes. Having to be trained in their powers by someone who has powers that can put them in a spot where they can, have some control over the superhumans. One of the things I've always made a point of is, like, one of the weirdest things I've never seen is we haven't seen someone who had super mega mind powers, like the leader or something like that.
Right.
Someone who had that super intelligence that could, basically defeat any superhero because they were smarter than them. So maybe we'll see that next season. We'll have to see, Mozz. We're going to have to see, and season 3 is coming. Tristan, did you want to do our sponsors? No, thank you. Okay. Well, Tristan, As I was going to say, a lot of you maybe have been listening to the show and you're not hearing it as well as you could. Maybe you missed things. Maybe you could hear all my failures with what's his name? John Carlos Escado. Tristan, if they can't hear what I'm saying, what should they do?
Well, they should go to Tweaked Audio headsets.
No, tweakedaudio.com. Okay. Tweakedaudio.com. Tristan, quickly, what coupon code should they use when they get there? He missed it. It's the coupon code Southgate, which will get you a discount on tweakedaudio.com headsets. Likewise, Tristan, where else can they go with that same coupon code?
Amazon.
No?
I don't know.
Hunter Killer, were you the one who said you wanted to do the tags? Okay. Well, then you should have asked for one at the start. You usually do it with me. Okay, anyway, so listen, guys. If you're looking for something to do, go to hunterkiller.com. Help Michelle Gray solve all of the cold cases that she has there. Use the coupon code Southgate to get a nice discount on that. And then when you're done, go to Amazon.com by using the link in our show notes. It will cost you nothing, and it helps out the show. So that's always a good thing. And while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book written by and for and from the Southgate Media Group family for you. Actually, it's by and from, not for, because you're who are buying it to read it. We already know it's in the book. We wrote it. It's available in paperback. It is available in downloadable form on your Kindle. And it is soon to be an audiobook as well for those of you who just don't like that reading but want to hear people talk in your ear. For which you might want to get Tweaked Audio headsets. There we go. Brought it all back full circle. And if anybody does any of that stuff, Mozz, how can they reach you to talk to you about it?
Oh, they can tell me all about it, and they can email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email, way the way our Mozz and Poz once did on the internet, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet DuckTales, woohoo, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Watch the birth of the Disney Afternooniverse come to life in a great series. And I hope you watch it. I hope you watch it with me. And I hope we can all talk about it. Because, honestly, it's some great stuff. There is some deep lore. And, I love the lore. And that has been another episode, me hearties. We have sailed the full length of The Boys, Season 2. Next, we start upon the rocky shores of the Mandalorian. And you'll certainly want to tune in again next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arrgh.